We're first going to focus our discussion around how the HSA stacks up against the traditional 401k and maybe some other retirement programs as well. Welcome to the show, Shandon.
Thanks for having me, Andy. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all about helping people save money for the future. So let's talk about the HSA. Can you talk about these triple tax advantages of the HSA?
Very simply put, a health savings account allows you to save money tax free, invest money tax free, and spend money tax free on eligible healthcare expenses. There's really nothing like it that's been created by the IRS. You really can put money in directly from, a payroll deduction from your employer, and it will never hit taxes if you use it in the way that it's sort of prescribed by the HSA regulations. So it's a very, very strong tool for retirement savings and also for saving in the short run, which of course everybody currently is thinking about their healthcare expenses. So a really, really, the triple tax advantage, we kind of rolls off the tongue, but it's very, very, core to the value of the health savings account.
Well, let's talk about what we can do with the money that's saved in the account. You mentioned healthcare expenses. What does that mean?
Essentially, what the IRS refers to it as is eligible medical expenses. That can be anything from a doctor visit to, costs for surgery, all the way to things like, over-the-counter drugs were actually remade an eligible expense by the CARES Act recently. So you can spend on allergy medicine or, over-the-counter, pain relief. Female, hygiene products were also recently made eligible, which is a really big deal for, those kinds of expenses, and everything in between. I mean, you can get, if you're prescribed by a doctor to get a massage or go to the chiropractor, that's all eligible. There are hundreds and hundreds of eligible expenses out there.
I love it. That's great. Well, these are great options for a lot of people. And sometimes when you think of the traditional retirement savings, you think about, okay, that's something for way in the future. These are ways to save today, and our government is wanting us to do that. So let's talk about the retirement savings piece too. You mentioned that maybe this could be used for retirement as well. Let's talk about that. How is that possible?
Yeah, so one thing, a lot of people will confuse a health savings account with a flexible spending account or an FSA. And the key difference, super important difference, is that an FSA generally is what's called use it or lose it. You sort of put your money in, and if you don't spend it by the end of the year or a certain period thereafter, you lose the money. It's no longer yours. With a health savings account, it rolls over from year to year. And so not only does this enable you to sort of build up money for your healthcare expenses in the short run, but you can also invest that money, as I said, tax free. So over time, you can invest a certain amount, and that builds up in the same way that it would with an IRA or a 401k. And then if you need access to that money for medical expenses, you have some sort of medical emergency, or you just need to get glasses, you can withdraw from or use your HSA, and you're set.
Yeah, and then after 65, isn't there an option to use it for retirement as well?
Yeah, there are a couple of different things. So you can't, when you turn 65, you can no longer put money into the HSA, but you can take your money out anytime you want. And, there have been a lot of reports that I'm sure people have seen recently. One of the most familiar ones, I believe, is by Fidelity or Prudential. Actually, they probably both have reports like this, but you can spend upward of $175,000 to $300 or $1,000 or more on your health expenses in retirement, even with Medicare. So HSAs are really not just a good thing; they can be really essential for your retirement savings. The other cool part about HSAs is that you can save your receipts for as long as you want. So I could save for 30 years into my HSA, and then when I retire, I could get my file out with all of my healthcare expenses and turn those all in, and I would get all of this tax-free money that I could use in retirement. So super valuable on both fronts.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So a lot of people know about the 401k because it's at work and, everybody says sign up for your 401k. Let's talk about how they stack up. What are the major differences if I want to invest in a traditional 401k versus an HSA?
Well, I think that the biggest difference is that, a 401k is probably there aren't any kind of prerequisites other than employment with a 401k. With a health savings account, you currently have to have a what's called a consumer driven health plan, CDHP. More often you hear them referred to as high deductible health plans or HDHPs. So currently, and we've been working internally to sort of expand this, but you have to have a high deductible health plan. So if you have that, then you can put your money in tax free, and it really works a lot like a 401k beyond that. In fact, or an IRA for that matter. In fact, a lot of the sort of regulations that govern the health savings account come directly from the same regulations that govern a sort of traditional IRA. Another big difference is that with a 401k, you do have a larger kind of threshold that you can save each year. I think it's, what is it, close to $19,500 for a 401k. And with an HSA, you have individual and family, and the individual is $3,550, I think, in 2021, and 75 or $7,100 for a family. So it's a much lower threshold for being able to contribute to your HSA. But then again, you have this option of using it for current expenses at any time that you want. So pros and cons definitely there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you're the HSA guy, but if somebody's got a 401k at their office and they get a match from their employer, would you recommend taking that match or starting the HSA savings earlier than later?
Well, I'm at the sort of point in my life where I see both of them as essential, and I would never tell somebody to not take a match because it's free money. So definitely take the match, but also take a good hard look at the HSA, because especially if your employer is putting money into your HSA, which a lot of employers do. A lot of people think that an HSA is the best place to put your money first, not solely, but first, because of this additional sort of triple tax advantage with the spending part as well.
Yeah, I see that difference, and yeah, that can be a tough decision for people to make. But yes, free money is good. Have you seen employers start to, knowing the importance of healthcare savings, look at some sort of match for the HSA, or is that not a thing?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a thing. In fact, I think it's something like 60 to 75% of funds that go into an HSA at the beginning of every year are employer funds, basically. So they're putting in a match. The company, well, Starship, we have a very sort of generous amount that they put into our HSAs. My former company, we also had a pretty generous match that we put into HSAs, and what you'll often hear it referred to as is first dollar expenses. So the trade-off with an HSA is that you get a high deductible health plan, and as the name implies, it has a high deductible. So you have to pay your own money for your medical expenses before you reach your deductible. And so knowing this, the strategy for basically the entire existence of HSAs has been to provide first dollar expense. Not all companies do, but if they do, they may give you $1,000 or $2,500 or something like that, so that if you have to go to the doctor, and especially if you have a family, you're going to the doctor all the time, you can you have some money up front that you can pay for it, so it kind of makes it better for you, and you're paying a lower deductible, or you're paying a lower premium usually than like a PPO or an HMO or something like that.
I saw that when I've done both. I had a PPO, and then I switched over to the high deductible plan, and my company had great benefits, and my premium ended up being nothing as opposed to what I was paying. So, but more of the onus is on me if in
Exactly.
the name, high deductible. So we have to be prepared for that. Maybe have an emergency savings or money set aside through an HSA to pay for some of those things. Now, I know the 401k's been around for a while. It's been around for a while, and HSA's kind of new. Have you seen a steady increase in HSA enrollees over the past years?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that so HSAs were created essentially in 2003, and so they've been around for 17 or so years. So and of course 401ks first started emerging in the 70s, and really took off in the 80s and 90s. So the amount, if you're looking at like membership, it's a lot smaller. If you look at deposits, like investment deposits. 401ks are at like $6 trillion, or they're going to be, very soon, and HSAs are going to be around $100 billion, in 20 at the end of 2021, I think is the estimate, or the projection. So they're a lot smaller, but they have they're really growing a lot quicker. So the investments in particular are growing, by leaps and bounds. I think about in a 3-year period, they will have gone from about $50 billion to $100 billion. So there's absolute momentum there. And like I said, we're trying really hard, with the way that healthcare is currently, and with everybody worrying about healthcare even more these days. We kind of feel like everybody deserves to have an HSA. So we're working through, political channels and all the rest to kind of promote the idea that everybody deserves an HSA.
Got it. Well, let's talk to the individual out there who says, you know what, I have a high deductible health plan, or I'm considering signing up for one, but my company doesn't have an HSA. Can I still sign up for an HSA?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So HSAs are individual accounts. They don't belong to your employer. They belong to you. So even after you leave an employer, even after your coverage is canceled or your COBRA runs out, that health savings account and the money in it belongs to you. So it's very good to shop around, and it's very good to have an HSA if you have a high deductible health plan. If you have the means to put money into it, then you absolutely should be. And of course, we think you should be getting Starship, for your HSA.
Well, let's talk about that. Where's the best place people can learn more about Starship and then consider signing up?
Yep, you can go right to starshiphsa.com, and you'll see all the information that you need. There's a sign up button. You can learn how it works, and you can even reach out, through chat with our awesome support team.
Awesome. Shandon, thank you so much for your time today. Everybody, starshiphsa.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy. It's been great
one.
talking to you.